We're pretty excited. A very unique $1 Million Agent podcast today. Troy is not joining us, but we have with us Tony O'Doherty. And in case you don't know who Tony is, well, you're going to know a lot about him in the next hour. But just to give you an idea, Tony came to speak at a real estate gym event 3 months ago at Bowen Hills at News Corp's office. And I remember listening to you for 20 minutes, Tony, and I thought I told you straight away, I said, you got to speak. Actually, I didn't tell you straight away. When I went to Melbourne that night, I rang you up that night. I was on the, actually, it was on the plane. I remember sitting on the plane thinking, I got to lock this guy in. And I remember ringing you, John, the next day. Had never seen a presentation that had the combination of authenticity cut through. It was thoughtful, it was humorous, but most importantly, the crowd that was there said, this is as good as we've ever seen. So I thought, you got to get him at ARIC. So Tony, welcome. John, thank you for joining us again for one of our last podcasts, or second last podcast, I think, or third last podcast of the year. We'll probably do another 1 to 2 more after this. Yeah. Exciting. And I know that you're pumped, and I know that you've had conversations after that, because I know that he's, now becoming part of the McGrath organization. But John, great to see you, and good to see you, Tony.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Tony. Welcome, Tone. Yeah, it's funny, Tom, because when you said that to me, I said, well, I'll let you in on the confidence that we're actually in quite protracted conversations with Tony about joining our brand. And as it turns out, probably more by good luck than good management, today I think it's your first official day with us, Tone. You and John Easton, your business partner.
First day in black, and we're excited. Tom, thank you for the intro. I feel as though the people watching can only be disappointed when you sell me that highly. The only way is down, guys. Please curb your expectations.
It gets worse from here.
That's why. Tip number one, everyone, don't promise too much and you'll never disappoint. Right?
Yes.
We've screwed that up, Tone. Tell us, with that charming accent of yours, clearly yes, you weren't born in Queensland. Give us a bit of an idea, because a lot of people have heard about you, but they don't know much about you. So tell us a bit more about how you ended up in Australia, where you came from, how you ended up here.
John, as we've discussed, I'm a Limerick-born Irishman. I came to Australia in 2011. I would love to say I was a man with a plan and it's all worked out. In reality, I came with my bags on my back for a 6-month, a bit of a look-see, to see what was going on. I was 21 at the time. I'm 34 today, as in not today, but I am currently 34. So I've been here that length of time. It's been amazing. They don't call it the lucky country for nothing. It's where uneducated men like myself can reach their full potential. So, yeah.
And how real estate. So you got to Australia, you're kind of backpacking. You thought, I'm going to have a look around. This is a pretty cool country. Maybe I'll stay a bit longer. How did you end up getting into the world of real estate?
Mate, like a lot of Irish males, I was stuck in the construction industry. It's like the default position of those of us, and for some people it is a great career, but for me it wasn't. It was the default position of a guy who hadn't found his way yet. And I found it by accident, and I speak purely on my journey because construction is a great industry in its own right. I actually got injured. I had a bulging disc in my neck, nothing too major, but at the time I needed to reskill. My father owned a real estate company in Ireland, but real estate in Ireland is very different, John. It's the level of Australian real estate, the caliber of agencies and agents. And so, yeah, look, came in 2011, was in construction for a couple of years. I got into real estate in 2015. It's coming up 10 years. And it's been amazing. I wouldn't change a thing. It's given me so much, but just like you gentlemen, let's be honest, it takes a lot. You get out of this sport what you put into it. And I put 10 years in, or maybe, the best part of 10 years in, where, the cadence was high, the work ethic was high, the drive, the determination, the output. The output has been high, and we've achieved phenomenal things through hard work and dedication.
Yeah, I'm going to ask one more question and throw over to Tommy. So early days, because there's some people on here that are, you know, sort of $1 million plus riders. There are other people that are where you were when you just described when you started, Tony, sort of, you know, they haven't kicked many goals yet. They've just started out. They're kind of looking for some sort of a formula they can follow to kind of follow in your footsteps. If there was, and you mentioned high work ethic, high cadence, which I assume probably means energy and speed at which you're operating. What are some of the other tips you can give for the people that are more at the starting out, or maybe have been in it a few years, but they haven't yet got into that momentum state? What are some of the things, as you look back, you know, a decade ago, that you kind of did and probably still do to this day that made the difference and got you into momentum?
But I suppose the one big advantage that an agent starting out has over all three of us here today is time. The more successful you become, the more of your time that's just taken away, that's allocated, that's used. And when you're on the start of your journey, you have time. And it's something that most people struggle with. We call it discipline. They struggle with the discipline. The other thing they struggle with is the freedom, right? Because you go and work for any employer, right? A big company, McDonald's, whatever it is. You're told what time to turn up. You're told what time to have your lunch. You're told what time to leave. You go and join a McGrath office tomorrow, no one's going to be clocking you in and clocking you out. You know, they'll look back 3 months later and see how productive you've been. But I think most people need to be very mindful. There's this myth about time management, and you can't manage time because there's a certain amount of seconds and minutes and hours, and you can't manage that no matter who you are. So the word is prioritizing. I think if they prioritize their time, understand what the dollar productive tasks are, and get you know, park everything else. So my simple message, it's not even, I wish it was more wise or insightful or revolutionary, but it's simple because it's the one that they're all that we all struggle with at all levels, and that is time. And you know, is it Warren Buffett describes, the way he describes saving is, he says our generation, they save after they've spent instead of spending after they've saved. And it should be the same with your calendar and your time. You should be blocking out, here's what I'm doing this now. And we know the tasks we're talking about: prospecting, door knocking, getting in front of clients. You know, a lot of people at the start of their career, they're hiding behind computers and laptops and softwares and socials. My view is get in front of more people, talk to more people, change people's lives, but you got to be bringing value as well. Sorry, Tom.
No, well, you do. Go, Tommy, go.
Yeah, I was going to. So the people that watch and listen to this podcast probably are broken up into three groups. The first group I would call as an emerging agent that's on the younger side. He or she would be happy to do 10, 15 deals. They just want to stay alive. They're pumped, you know, they've got visions of nice cars and they're in the earlier phase. Then you've got a second group who have survived. They haven't quit. They're in the game and they're in growth mode. And then the third group, which you fall in that category, so does your good mate, Alex Jordan, and a small group of other agents around Australia and New Zealand are pinnacle agents. They're on the map, you know, they're sought out vendors, high quality vendors that are coming on the market right now will say, I'm getting him in to hear his story. They attract business. At what point do you think it's right for an emerging agent, the one in the earlier part of the career, at what point do you think that they in their head have to mentally sign up for what you're saying, the long hours, because they've got the time, and often doing the uncomfortable activities because no one's really calling them and they don't have listings to list off listings, if you know what I mean? How long was that period, if you can recall?
For me, I was so ambitious, I never came out of that period. I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And that's fine. I didn't have balance. The top 1% in any industry doesn't know how to spell balance. They don't coexist. And I'm not sitting here saying to your thousands of followers or audience that you should go and be a workaholic and die on your tools. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you should be highly productive. If that means you're getting home to your wife and kids earlier, then fantastic. The only reason for you to write more GCI and to help more families transition in and out of homes is if you want to, if you want to. So for some people, and the other thing I'll correct you on, Tom, to a certain degree, I worked all the hours of the day for a certain period of my career. And then I started to get clever and started to say no and started to get really productive. So when you're highly productive, you don't need to be in the office all day and all night, because when you're in there, you're on. And you notice, you guys see it all the time. Like half the people in the office are in the office, but they're not, the output isn't there. They're socialites. They're around the water cooler. They're talking to whatever it is, or just be productive.
I noticed you've been doing a few videos with Alex on social media. They're great to watch, and I urge anyone that wants some thoughtful, deep, meaningful conversation and banter between two agents who are in the trenches. The truth is, John and I, we might occasionally go to a listing presentation with a coaching client, or John goes to presentations with McGrath people, but you do that, you and Alex do it. How does the Alex, do you compete against, is that where you met each other? You compete against each other?
We have never competed against each other at the listing table, fortunately for me. I think there was a time where we competed on the scoreboard. So Alex is currently, he's found another gear and he's kicked on again, and he's currently the #1 in the state. Probably back in 2021, we would have been very equal in the level of high performance. And Alex is, he's a different type of agent. He's a guy who I describe with a higher intellect. When people think about real estate agents, not the general public, because we know what they think of us, but when, I'd often have people say to me at home, right, from Ireland, my original home, they'd say, "Oh, we always knew you'd make it. You're a great talker. You're a great salesman." But that's not really what an elite agent is. To me, a real elite agent is a good listener and can ask good questions and has a high emotional intelligence. They're not just a mouthpiece. And Alex is, he's hard to keep up with. He's very across. Alex is an expert in his field, in an industry surrounded by amateurs. And that's the brutal reality of it. And if you are going up against him, oh, you're in trouble. You're in trouble.
Good luck.
Good luck. Well, maybe on an off day you might have a chance, but I don't think so.
Let me touch on that, because AJ, who's a dear friend of mine also, and all of ours, and I know that he's a friend of yours, but he's also been a bit of a mentor to kind of help you grow your business. And I asked him today, I said, I'm going to be interviewing Tony this afternoon. What are your insights? Because you've been close with him for a long time. I said, why is he successful? He said, these are his exact words. I scribbled them down. John, he's highly motivated. He's hungry and competitive. He's a genuine fella that always does the right thing by people. Tom, this is like, the reason I'm going through this is, if anyone's listening now, well, there are many people listening, this is a great path. Motivated, hungry, competitive, genuine, does the right thing. He has a good process. He's laser focused on his geography. Therefore, he's built a great reputation, and he's surrounded himself with a good team. Well, I mean, that's it. But let me just take you through a few of those and hear your reaction there, Tony. I mean, motivated, it's not hard to be motivated for a day or an hour or for a week. It's hard to be motivated for a decade or a lifetime. I mean, what do you do to keep yourself at peak mental fitness, not just physical fitness, peak mental fitness? How do you stay strong mentally?
It's interesting, John, because that's something I've only focused on in the last couple of years. So the motivation and the drive, and this is my opinion, you gents have worked with a lot more people than me. I think it's something you have or you don't. You cannot motivate an unmotivated human, in my experience. So when you are motivated, the next step is discipline. It's making sure you're doing the right stuff and the stuff often you don't want to do, the daily tasks. To answer your question, only in the last couple of years, I've really focused on my behavior off the pitch, as I describe it. It's very important for your brand that you are a clean, crisp human to a certain degree. We all got to live our lives as well. And I think fitness is an important thing. What are you doing for your mental health? I think in our generation, we kind of think as though we're entitled to it. We should feel great, when in reality, you're only going to feel as great as your behaviors. So I'm not a perfect human. I'm an Irishman with Irish tendencies. And the first couple of years of my career, in my 20s, I would be at every function, every gathering. I'd go to the opening of an envelope just to be social, which is all very well and good, but it wasn't helping me perform. I think the really good professionals in any game, they see themselves as athletes. You know, you have to be sharp. And in our game, in the areas where I'm operating, there's people that will take those listings if you're not sharp. So I have an obligation to myself, to my family, to my current clients who I'm representing. You know, if a buyer rings you and you're having a negotiation with them, you gotta be in good form. You gotta be ready. You gotta be sharp, and you gotta know that a family goes to work a husband and wife go to work every day to earn on average, you know, let's say the average income in Brisbane is 70, 80, 100, maybe in my area, 100, 150,000. They go for a year to work to give half it to the taxman to try and save a small bit of money at the end of the year. I can make them a year's wage by using my skills that no one else around me, well, without talking anyone else down, I believe in my team and our process has the ability to give somebody years of their income in a conversation. So how dare I not be ready for that conversation? You know, they hired me for that. I need to be better when I'm representing them than I was at the listing table, because a lot of us do that. A lot of dialogue and training from agencies and coaches is based around the listing table. But that's just an opportunity to go to work. Yeah, I get it. It's fundamentally massive. You don't have an industry career without it. But don't be better at the listing table than you are at the negotiation table. That's just selfish. And you need to be ready for all of that.
Yep.
That's well said. I'm curious. The model, your model. You're a director that has got your own pod, super team, EBU, whatever term you describe, but you're also the owner of a total office.
Mm-hmm. So that has recently changed, John. Tom. 6 months ago, I owned a rent roll. I owned an agency. I was a high-performing agent, and you can only wear. And maybe it's me, so I'll speak about myself. I was only able to wear one hat very well, and that hat, that job, that role was assisting a mom and dad get the best outcome for their home. I believe I'm a really good real estate agent. Simple as. I wasn't a really good property management leader, business leader. John Eisen, who is a long-standing friend of mine, has joined our business. He is now running the business itself, so making sure that agents have everything they need to progress. We have sold the rent roll for the time being, and my only focus is my team around me and the people that trust me with their most valuable assets. So I feel 10 kilos lighter. I feel a few kilometers faster, and I just feel ready and vicious. I have nothing but clarity as to what I'm doing. With the backing of John and his wonderful team and network and the global network that they are now. We joined today. Today was day one. I had a phone call from Knight Frank's CEO. They've all reached out just to show their support, and the amount of McGrath principals, heavy-hitting, busy men and women that have been on the phone to me today already is overwhelming. So I feel a great obligation to my family, first of all, and to the McGrath family, second of all, to make sure that when my clients are finished with my service, that their lives are better.
Just so well said. And I've got to tell you, John, you must be feeling absolutely privileged to be able to get someone of the caliber as a professional, but also as a human, because I know John's got a policy. He loves the numbers, but he also likes people that are good people that write the numbers, and he doesn't like people that are bad people that write numbers, and he definitely doesn't like people that are bad people that write bad numbers, right? So
we've always had that view, Tommy, and Tony. Thank you for that, and I'm not surprised people have reached out because everyone's very excited. Let's look. You've mentioned your team, and Alex mentioned your team as well. So he has high regard for your team and the fact that you've assembled a great group of people around you. And I think he might have also mentioned swim lanes that you stick in yours. Can you just without too much minutiae, but what is the makeup of your team? What are their key roles, and what is Tony O'Doherty's key role within the team?
My team has grown in recent years in order to be able to keep up with the scale that we're after and the level of service that we're after. Kaylee's a co-agent within my team. She's been with me the longest, in excess of 7 years, which is most of my journey. I spoke about 10 years. It's closer to 9. I spent 18 months working in other agents' teams. I did it the old-fashioned way, and one of the last to do it that way of jumping in and going hard. Kaylee's been with me for 7 years, trusted member of my team, an experienced real estate agent in her own right. She's my co-agent predominantly in Balimba. She was Balmoral and Hawthorne as well, but she's focusing now on one suburb so that we can really increase our market share again. Ollie's the same. Ollie's been with me, I think, for nearly 5 years. Young guy, came to us pretty much straight out of school, maybe a year or two. Hard worker, swam at a good level, going through the school years, which is important as well, because that shows work ethic, and it shows that competitive
Discipline too.
Yeah, discipline. And these are all good humans, John. You said about, or Tom, you give John a plug, which is highly relevant because, that's how you keep a brand pure. Not to tell you boys how to do your job, and you know better than me, but the point I'm making is I'm surrounded by good people. They're good performers, but there's none of them that I wouldn't, sell my house with or share my spare time with. They're all good people. Kate was our BDM. She was a really high-performing BDM at the highest level. She joined us only 6 months ago from the BDM role as a co-agent. Bailey's been with me for probably 2 years. Each of them have their own geographical areas where we're heavily focused on maximizing the return for our vendors, making sure the service is sharp, making sure our list to sell ratio is sharp, making sure we're the best in our field, in our areas. And that's what these guys focus on. The backbone of all of these businesses is the men and women in the admin roles. There's nobody more important than them. Ash has been with me for a couple of years, really sharp young girl in her mid-20s. Brittany's been with us. She came across from another business pretty recently. So that's the makeup of my team. My job as the lead agent is to ensure that multiple things, obviously the listing, how do we call it? Because it's ever changing. It's a responsibility. It's a responsibility to the sellers to show up and be ready. It's the responsibility to the co-agent that got you in the door to make sure you're ready. So my job is to find the net in football terms, and the goals are bringing in the business and optimizing the return for our clients. They're my main activities. Negotiations with buyers. Doing my job. And what is my job? My job is to bring in business and make sure we sell it for more than anyone else could have, in simple terms.
And Tony, now obviously there's a following, there's a strong following, you've got a great reputation and a strong track record, but you've still got to, and so therefore I guess some of the business is going to find its way to you. You've still got to list it, you've still got to be the best person, but things have changed a bit. But what are you doing proactively? Because I know that you've got strong market share, leading market share in your 3 key areas, but I also know you want to double that business. So how do you see the growth in terms of how do you find your new clients other than just reputation? Is your team on the phone? Are they door knocking? What are some of the key activities that your guys have been?
What we're trying to do is, so what happens in our industry, about 3% of the market are for sale at any one time. And the catch and kill model is to try and find the 3%. What the better operators are doing is servicing the 100% and waiting for the 3% to come to them. So our big shift in mindset now is just to constantly give information, give data, give, bring.
Can I just stop there? I can pretty much tell you that sentence there summarizes what this whole podcast, what if you've said what we try and do every week in our podcast, which is basically say you've got to become their agent before they need an agent. That is the secret. But no one wants to do that. Everyone wants the 3% that you talk about, catch and kill.
Tom, I had a guy, he's outside of the industry and he's been following my journey and he's a good business head. And he sees me doing these kind of things. And he says, how much do you get paid? And I said, most of these are just given back. And occasionally, if there is remuneration involved, I give it to charity because I'm happy to have these conversations. And he said, have you heard of intellectual property? I said, yeah. I said, I've heard of the concept. He said, you stand up in front of all your competitors and give them all your IP. Why do you do that? And my answer was, and I didn't mean it in a bad way, but I said, most of them won't use it anyway, you know? So like, there's nothing, and I'm not discrediting, the concept of our sport is incredibly easy. It is so easy.
But that's a good point. Like, if we know that the blueprint of real estate is become their agent before they need an agent, then you're on the shopping list when the time's right. There's a reason. Why don't people do it? It's actually arithmetic. If you think about it, this is maths. If everything in life was maths, we wouldn't have all these deaths that we do. It's mathematics. Why don't people do the maths then?
Because this equation needs to be repeated every day, Monday to Friday, and even more so on Saturday. You have to show up, turn up, and have the energy. This sport is brutal. It'll punch you straight in the face. And when you've just had a lovely win, someone will pull that rug straight out from under you and you'll hit the ground quicker than you could think. And that's the brutal part. You need to be resilient. You need grit. And every now and then, just like a boxer, you're going to have to take a belt to give a belt. And that's the part people struggle with. You know, you got to bite down in the mouth guard and cop a few. It's as simple as that.
Tony, tell us about, in terms of listing, and again, we're not looking for every secret herb and spice because you do have competitors watching here, but in general, are you a organised lister? Do you do a lot of research before? Do you just turn up and listen, as you said? But, you know, what does it kind of feel like if I was experiencing a listing with you, or if I was videoing you before, during, and after a listing?
John, if I was to ask you the same about your career and leadership over the decades, you would tell me how much you've changed and grown and evolved. And I'm the same right now, where I'm in. The guy that got me to where I am is not the guy that'll get me to where I want to be. Because the thing about listings is it's psychology. And yeah, there's different brackets and there's different demographics and different personality types. For me, I relied a lot on energy and charisma and things that equate to a certain or translate to a certain personality type. What I've learned through recent experiences is you need to cater for all. You need to cater for that detail-orientated person. So to answer your question, my best year, my team and I, my best year was 2021. We sold 164 homes to 164 families. I probably listed 180 homes that year. I went in, personally signed every one of those, negotiated every transaction, or every sale, I should say. That was all energy. That was all energy. But it takes a lot to rely on energy. And the problem with energy is, I don't care who you are, you will have off days. You will have off days. So my strengths, my competitors will know this. When I'm on, none of them can beat me. But the person that beats me, and I've said this recently, we got lovely feedback. I have a high level of accountability in everything I do. It's always me. That's just my view. I understand that. I understand it's always me. Whether I want to win or lose, it's me. It's nobody else. But geez, I can beat myself. You know, I can give my competitors the occasional listing. You know, but I've got very good at not doing that anymore. So, energy was the word. If you recorded me through the years, you would see a guy walk in, build his rapport as quickly as possible, care about the other person, have a good process and formula to explain to them, and never ask them to sign. I never did what you're telling your clients, your clients to do, what most people are telling them to do. Ask for the business, which is something I've started doing now, this late in my career. But John, to answer your question, we're going out of energy alone and into psychology, preparation, knowing the person, guiding them to where we want them to be. And where we want them to be is with us, where we can care for them and get them the best result.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
You've got some, John, in that area. I mean, there's some serious agents there that know their stuff, right? You compete against good agents. And I'm just curious that, you know, you walk in and there's a very good chance that there's going to be maybe 2 or 3 other groups of agents or agents doing an appraisal or an audition. I mean, do you seem to go into the property once and ask for the business because you've had this relationship by database and conversations? Or do you seem to sort of say, I really need to come back here a second time and spend more time there? Is it normally multiple meetings? Is it one meeting?
Again, previous years, it's been multiple. I used to always do 2. I don't do that anymore now. I spend more time on the discovery call, learning what I need to learn, to know what I need to know, to be able to bring the best value to them on the first meeting. So we try to focus on one now, and there's different categories. You know, it's funny, you know, the one that I struggled with the most, and it's a weird one, was actually referrals, right? Because just like you did at the start of this, Tom, you gave me this glowing review. And my clients would absolutely sing my praises. And the people that would see me and they'd be like, really? Is this the same guy? They're like, who's this tosser? He's nowhere near as good as that guy. So I kind of grow on people. The more exposure I get to them, the more they realize that I actually give a shit about them. And at the end of a collaboration with a vendor, they're often raving fans, and so much so that at the start of my relationship with a new person, they're like, fuck, he must have been, you know. Anyway. So go on, Tom.
I want to ask you, you know that you're saying that, hey, it's sort of moving, you know, towards one meeting, and you said, I've just started asking for the business. What does that sound like and look like? Like, let's assume you came to my property and the discovery call, and I'm definitely selling, and it connected, and you felt like the energy's there. I feel like, you know, there's good chemistry between us. What does it sound like asking for the business? Tell me what that sounds like.
In 2 sentences, first of all, you're qualifying to see if they have any questions on what you've just explained to them. So you're saying, is there any part of what we discussed today that you want me to elaborate on? Which part of what we discussed today are you most excited about? Or is there a part that you're apprehensive about? So you're clarifying, is there an obstacle? Once there isn't, and then I openly say to them, I'd love to represent you. Are you ready to make that commitment now? Just ask the question, you know? And I never ask the question. Right. I never, and it's, you know, I sat with John for a half an hour, a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, the thing he took away from it, and we won't go into too much detail, but sometimes the conversation you're having within can become it becomes reality. So if you have a lack of something and you're telling yourself, oh, maybe, you know, you got to be careful not to create what am I trying to say? Your thoughts become your reality. You've got to be so careful with your thoughts.
Oh, again, you've nailed that. I get agents that go in there thinking to themselves, I really hope they don't just, you know, want me to do a low fee. They're going to ask me a low fee. Oh, you know what? I better actually get rid of that problem. I'll just give them a low fee. And before we know it, there's a low fee on the table with no one was thinking about the low fee except your own narrative at the time.
Oh, mate, it's so... And I'm an overthinker by nature. People just have that. But I find the best thing to overcome any of these things is activity. You know, stay busy and stay. But you've got to keep practice. I never practiced, which was, I was one of those guys that, despite my success and my team's success, I left a lot more on the table than I should have on the way through, because I never aligned myself with a good coach, which is another thing I recommend everybody here. You need to have this is a sport. This is a sport. If you see it any other way, it's because you're not serious about it. That's a harsh statement. That's an opinionated statement, but I stand by it for me, not necessarily for everyone else on here. It's performance. And if Rafa Nadal, who just retired, if Novak Djokovic is standing with Andy Murray in his corner, and you're not a world number one, but you think you know it all, you better hope you're not near a world number one, because they'll wipe the floor with you. And the thing for me is I just want to get better. And I know that there's people out there that know so much more than me.
Well, listen, Johnny's the best coach around. You've got a great brand. And more importantly, you've created a model that allows you now to spend your time not worrying about those other things because your business partner is doing it. Can I ask you, with all that, I mean, what are you thinking is achievable in terms of, I mean, do you think 250 deals, 300 deals? What do you think?
Man, we haven't thought that. I haven't, look, we have 200 is something that has come. We're thinking about market share. We know that we can double down our market share, and we know that we can have twice the amount of families at the school gate singing our praise, and we can have twice the amount of families at the school gate overselling me so I can fuck it up.
Tone, we've got about sort of 7 or 8 minutes, because I know we told everyone we'd sort of go through at about 4:45. This has been amazing, and you are very kindly have agreed to speak at ARIC next year, I think, so people can come along and hear more about you. But there's a lot of egos in this business. There are people that have not done 20% of what you've done and what Alex Jordan has done, and they've got massive egos. And Tom and I just talk about it on this a lot. It's quite embarrassing for our industry. I mean, is there anything within your makeup that's allowed you to keep your feet on the ground as your figures astronomically, and just letting everyone know, we think that Tony is the fastest growing agent in our country's history in terms of hitting $1 billion in sales. So is there something in your makeup that you say to yourself, or you believe in, or your family upbringing, or something has you, because you are one of the most grounded, as is AJ, people I've ever met. I mean, what's behind that?
I think that the real high performers, we focus on what's left to improve upon. And that can be taxing, that can be difficult. Like, I'm hard on my team. My team have stayed with me through loyalty and love, and we've got each other's backs, and often it's a negative. I don't always celebrate the wins. I see the things that I could do better. My score to date, in comparison to the industry, comparison to the best in the industry, and the time in which we've done it, is phenomenal. We can stand anybody, but it is nothing compared to the future. It is nothing compared to what I have in what my capacity and capabilities are with the people I have around me. So what keeps me from getting ahead of myself is I'm aware of my capacity and how far away I am from it. So maybe one day, John, I'll look at you and say, fuck it, I met it. But I'll tell you what, I'm a long way away.
Oh, mate, when you go to Ireland, they must think you're Elvis Presley. Like, you've made. I got John. I reckon part of it. I've noticed it.
Don't say it, Tom. Don't say it. It's not the accent, man. I'm a lot more than an accent.
No, it's not the accent, but I look at it. Whether it was at the cafe, I always, when there's a worker that comes in, you know, the ones that wear the Irish uniform, that whole on the streets there. The Irish people are the best to talk to. They make you, you have a good laugh. At chemo, all the nurses were from Ireland. For some reason, they're all, and they're fun. I think the upbringing, and be honest, like the income that you're making in Ireland, that puts you in, mate, like.
But in Switzerland, it puts you at the very top of the food chain.
Hey, one of the things, Tom, a lot of people won't know about Tony, and they'll even know it less after this interview, because he comes across so eloquently and confidently. But Tone, you're quite an introvert in a lot of ways, and you and I had that conversation, and I am as well. And a lot of people watching it, for them, the shy ones like us and the introverted ones, they've kind of potentially used that as an excuse. Oh, I'm not one of these gift of the gab people. You know, I'm a bit shy and whatever. And you know, like I said, I think you and I certainly share that in common, Tone. How have you been able to overcome that and go and do what you've done to date and what you're about to do, which is even more so, whilst being somewhat of an introvert? Just how have you been able to manage that?
I suppose the truth of it is I do withdraw as much as I can. But I suppose if you were to, which is still very little in comparison to how much we have to be out there, I don't immerse myself in the community as much as I should. In my spare time, I am not going, you know, I am a withdrawn character. I am a withdrawn character. I didn't know I was introvert until very late in the piece. I didn't realize it, you know, funny how I considered myself to be, you know, self-aware amongst other things, and I wasn't aware at all of a key fundamental of myself. I just think, yeah, I'm making work. I don't know that being an extrovert is an advantage over an introvert. I don't know that, because when I walk into a room, I'll pick a corner and I'll be in that corner, but the people will come, and when they come, I'm probably softer and easier, and I'm not confrontational, or that's not the right word. My confidence is not overpowering for anybody. And I think in some cases, when I describe my the glowing reviews I get from my clients, and the other people who not that they don't gel with me, they probably see too much of the introvert, and they don't see the assassin. You know, they need to see that absolute killer that's going to nail it for them. And I think sometimes maybe that holds me back a little bit, that I am a little bit introverted, but no excuses. I wouldn't change anything, you know. And I think people at home, just get rid of your excuses, because if you're not careful, they'll be right. You can make them right. You can make your bullshit accurate, or you can make it not a factor.
Tone, if I interviewed 100 of your vendors, and they are raving fans, it's become legendary the way people feel about you after you've finished a sale with them. What would be 3 things that you reckon they would say? If I said, Tony, what's he like? How was it to deal with him? Give me 3 words that you think they would likely say about their experience with you.
Communication is a big one. I didn't want to use it because it's like something that we'd all say, but it is a big one. It is a massive one. We're very high on our level of communication. Voice notes would definitely come in there, and that's, you know, like, it's a weird thing to say. I run most of my business off voice notes. I'm always just notifying my vendors, then we chat as much as we need to.
When you say a voice note, does the note get transcribed, or you just send them a voice message? I'm curious.
We've got 45 minutes into this without somebody taking the piss out of my accent. This was good. It doesn't come up with some subtitles, as many people.
He didn't say translate. He said transcribe.
No, it's just verbal. It's just verbal.
You send them like a little recording. They hit play and they listen to what you've said.
Yeah, on WhatsApp. So we have all our vendors in WhatsApp meetings, and it's our WhatsApp groups. It's proven invaluable. Just that level. You couldn't provide the level of communication that we do without having a central forum and a method. Communication, we care. We genuinely care, and that comes across.
Yeah.
And team is the other one. I don't know, John, if I've answered that right or wrong. It's just 3 things that came to mind. We communicate at a very high level. We give a shit about the outcome. And my teammate, they're the same. I have a team full of winners. They're people that turn up, show up, want to service, want to be there, good energy, good attitude. Yeah.
I reckon they'd say my gut feeling is passion.
Yes.
That's a combination of energy and giving a damn. And I reckon they'd say energy.
Yes.
You're a high energy guy. Every time I've met you, you're a high energy guy.
Yeah.
And as AJ said, you know, you just don't bullshit people. There's a sincerity, or I'd rather use the word genuine. Sincerity kind of sounds a bit weird, but authentic, genuine. What you see is what you get. There's no kind of sugarcoating of who he is or trying to pretend he's someone else. You'll know who Tony is after a 10-minute chat with him. You don't need to try and figure that out.
So my answer is energy, passion, and authenticity. That's my answer.
Tell me, AJ, you touched there on WhatsApp. AJ mentioned something about urgent versus non-urgent WhatsApp group chat sort of thing. Are you okay to share that?
Yeah. So what we did is what we find when we've got the amount of properties for sale at any one time, you have to be very careful how you categorize the inbound And what I did for a very long time was I managed everything. So my phone would ring, I would answer it 16 hours a day, 6.5 days a week. And what I described earlier on in our conversation was the obligation you have to your vendor to be as good at the negotiation table as you are at the listing table. Well, I guarantee you, you're not doing that if you're taking 100 calls a day. So what I'm doing now is, you spoke about energy. It can't be created or destroyed. It can be transferred and moved. And if I give it to the wrong people, I won't have it for the right people. So I have urgent chats. So when I've spent 45 minutes with you right now, my phone hasn't evaporated. There has been work coming in, communication coming in, and my team is dealing with that. When I get off this call, the first thing I'm going to look at is my urgent chat. Is there a buyer trying to buy a home? Is there a deal to be done? Then non-urgent, is there a teammate that needs assistance, that needs TLC? Is there, yeah. So we categorize in order to prioritize. A word I used at the very start. I can't, and I did it for too long. I did everything, or I was the conduit to everything. So my team were always very active, and I shouldn't say I did everything. I was involved in everything, which is not, I mean, mate, you wouldn't have 140 offices if you were involved in everything, John. You'd have one office, and that's where you would have been capped. You can't do everything, or at least you can't do everything well. So now I do 20% of the job, inverted commas. I'm across the marketing from the start, the negotiation. I'm running the campaigns. I'm not running myself into the ground trying to, answer the phone to the signboard guy when the signboard won't go into the ground because there's a rock there, and I'm like, you can't do everything. So you have to do what you do very well.
What proportion, these will be very quick because I'm mindful of time, but I want to extract as much of this content for our great listeners. What proportion of your business is auction versus private treaty?
High majority auction. We've sold about 130 homes this year. By the end of this month, we'll have done 103 or 4 auctions. So, 100 out of 130 are auctions. The other 30, they may not be compatible for the vendors, or in some case properties. So there's people that will tell you, and Tom, I don't know what your opinion is on this. There's people that will tell you that, you can auction any property, and that's true by definition, but not, to me, 100 of those 130, we went down that road. I'm not going to spend 4 weeks persuading a vendor that auction is the best if they have a core belief that it's not. Because if they have a core belief that it's not, how are they going to believe in the result that I got them? So I'm here to navigate what's best for the property and the vendor, and 100 that was auction.
And in the vendor servicing, this conversation and these voice memos that you're sending on WhatsApp, are you the only person that talks to the vendor in terms of vendor management, or are there other people in your team that are also talking to them?
So vendor servicing the whole way through, my team is involved. So there'd be the co-agent and the admin support, and they're just, knowledge is power. We say to our busier clients, they turn off the notifications. We don't want to bother you all day. We just want you to know that everything is done. So if I need you, I'll ring you and answer the call if you can. But other than that, we're about touch points. The more you can give them, the more confident they are that you're doing what you're doing.
Who does, Tony, on a first week of a good property, how many groups come through and open for inspection?
We don't get the flash numbers that other get. Like if we have a great campaign now, you'd have 50 buyers in the campaign. You'd have 17 or 18 at the first open home.
Who calls those buyers that come through the opens?
So they're categorized. You'll find that buyers will tell you who they are. I'm a neighbor, or I'm just having a sticky beak, or this is above my budget on the way out. So my team calls the I was going to use an insensitive word, the buyers that are not of value to the vendors, which in my experience is 80% of the buyers. My team communicates with them and tries to move them along to a property that is compatible to them, their budget and their needs. And my job is to deal with the consumers.
Right. So a bit of a triage service, like a doctor and a nurse. They're trying to work out who's a high priority person. We move it over here, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I used to do all the buyer callbacks. And let's say we've got 20 people through an open home. On average, statistically speaking, 4 of them will be willing, capable, motivated for that property. And by the time you've done speaking to the 16th person to get to the 20th, the best version of you is not dealing with that person. So, we try to make sure that we give everybody a great experience, and the person that can't afford the property that we're selling, they still deserve our time and our energy, and they still deserve our expertise. And the team does that exceptionally well.
Your reserve is set on the day or before the day?
He's trying to get as much out as possible here, John. Let's go, Tommy boy. It depends, often closer than you'd probably recommend to your people. I don't focus too much on reserve. And often I tell my vendors, feel free to increase the reserve. My reserve is often informed or dictated by the amount of bidders that we have. If I have a good auction, 10 registered bidders, I need to make sure that reserve is not going to cause my vendors an opportunity to miss out on momentum. If I've got 1 bidder, 2 bidders, and it's going to be a heavy grind, put the reserve up wherever you like. We can discuss it on the way through. So, again, trust is built along the way. When you have a high level of trust, your reserve, it sets itself.
Well, John, I reckon we got to get Tony on again. I know today's a big day because you've had your brand changed. And that, by the way, everyone, that is purely coincidental because this had been put in. I only found out this morning when you told me, John, that today, because I was trying to work out how we introduced Tony. John, I'd love to get Tony on. I'd love to get you also interview you a couple of more times because I've interviewed you in the gym in person, but not on video. And I would love to get you. All the hearts are coming. A lot of people have really appreciated the time that you've given us this afternoon.
Tone, I'm very thankful, and I just think about next year's ARIC, Tom, and we've had guys like Ryan Serhant and Tom Ferry, and I think about it, and to have people like Alex Jordan, Matt Steinway, Tony O'Doherty in our country is incredible, and our best agents are the best in the world, not just the best here, and I say that sincerely and hopefully not parochially, I believe it. Tony, we're so excited to be joining forces. Thank you for joining us. Before we go, though, Tommy, I want to shout out, firstly, to your gym members. Thanks for all joining. And it's a pleasure. I get to sometimes come in and do a little sort of guest presentation. I hope that'll continue next year in 2025. Shout out, because I know, Tommy, you are right now in the finalisation of your 2025 intake. It's about $2 a day. It's interesting. I was thinking about this before. If you went to Tony, a financial advisor, and you said, hey, I don't want to risk the farm, but I want something that's going to give me a pretty decent return. Can you give me a sense of what that, or you give me some shares in the stock market or property or whatever, and what sort of yield could I get? And a really good one might say, I reckon I can get you 12%, right? Something like that. Double digit, pretty good. I look at your gym membership, Tony, and Tom, and Tony said earlier, it's all about accountability, and if you don't have a coach, you're crazy. And he said that spontaneously, not to back up what I'm saying, but $700 invested sensibly with an agent that's actually prepared to put into practice what they learned from the gym could turn into a $700 investment, could easily turn into a $300,000-$400,000 yield with a high degree of certainty. We just know that, Tony's team is now doing and so is Alex Jordan's, nearly $1 million a month, thereabouts. So, it's not a stretch to say someone that's doing 200 grand a year goes to the gym, picks up, they listen to a Tony O'Doherty, they hear a Matt Steinway, all these great people. And that $700 investment could make them $200,000 or $300,000 without doubt. So I'm a great fan of yours, Tom, and your gyms. I know a lot of the McGrath people do it as well as they do stuff with us. They do it with you. Tommy, how do people jump into the gym?
Susan just put something in the chat group. Train. So Susan, train for free till the end of 2024. I think we copied that off Anytime Fitness because they've got that at the moment. Train in the gym till the end of 2024 for free. And not only that, Johnny, we've put a lot of trouble at getting people's prospecting, marketing, sales framework plans drawn up. So
Yeah.
our model, listen, I'm really proud of it because it's now 10 years. It's not something that it's a guinea pig. It's a decade, and we've learnt and we've got better to try and deliver content. And I know most of it is on video, but we do prospecting sessions. We meet up face-to-face at certain times. So they just go to realestategym.com.au. Susan's opened it up, and you will train for free till Christmas. And Johnny, I've got to tell you, Matty Steinway, Alex Jordan, yourself score incredibly over the years. You've been the biggest contributor to the gym. My gym members love you. They're going to love Tony because you think the same way. We're about no commission breath. Build a brand and let them come to you. But until that happens, you're going to have to work hard and understand and accept that there is no one way. It's taken me a long time. I always thought to myself, you got to get that McDonald's system. I don't think there's a one way. I think what happens is you work to your strengths. Now you're listening to a guy who's working to his strengths, and that's why I think that he's a happy person, because he's happy. He does good work. The clients are happy. He looks after his staff. His staff look after clients. And all of a sudden, it ends up being great numbers. And that's all it is. But some people's model is, some people will do the same number of sales without an auction system. Or some people will do it in a total social media way, and some people do it in a total print way. I know that, you're not a print person, Alex, because Tony, because I know that when you came to the building that day, he said to me, it feels a bit awkward here. I'm coming into the News Corp building, right? Or News Queensland, but there's not. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here. Congratulations to you both, actually, both on your relationship. Stay well. Looking forward to, if I don't see you before Christmas, are you going back to Ireland at all anytime soon?
I may or may not be surprising some people at home. Hopefully they don't see this, but who knows?
Oh, wow.
Good on you.
Okay. All righty.
Travel safe. Hey, Tone, I'll speak to you tomorrow. Tom, congratulations, Real Estate Gym. Jump into it for 2025. If you're only going to invest $1,500 in training next year, go to Eric and join the Real Estate Gym, and that'll take you a long way. Okay, everyone. See you, Tony. See you, Tommy.
Thank you, guys. Thank you to everybody
Thanks,
for tuning in.
Susan.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure,
Onwards
guys.
and upwards. See you guys. Bye.